Ah, shit. So, it's mid-March 2020 and the whole world is starting to shut down before my very eyes. I'm a 29-year-old London socialite who literally spends every night socialising, exploring, eating overpriced frozen yoghurt I've got no business buying, and my inner monologue is like, shit, what the hell am I gonna do? A vast expanse, an unknowable number of months stretches out before me and I think, that's when I remember the last video I recorded before I heard the word COVID was my 40 before 40 bucket list, and in it I said this.
Make an item of clothing from scratch that I would actually wear. I've been watching a lot of girls on YouTube who make clothes, and I'm not saying that it doesn't look incredibly hard, but it doesn't look undoable.
Look at me, look how innocent I was. This was the form my soul took before the pandemic crushed all my plans and concepts of human sensibilities and notions of normality. So, with shaking mittens, I go onto the internet and I find the cheapest sewing machine money can buy. Yes guys, $26.99. It does forward stitch, it does back stitch. It doesn't do backstitch. Still not overly convinced it's not a children's sewing machine, but it's about the size of a butternut squash, the size of a puny melon, the size of my heart when Connell starts crying by the swimming pool because Marianne doesn't want to. But that was all to come. It arrives. I open it. I look at it. It looks at me. And I think, shh, we can do this, and if we can't do this, we have an unlimited amount of months to find out. It came with loads and loads of pre-wound thread in this little baggie, very cute, a pedal, and some indecipherable instructions. It also came kind of pre-threaded, which is very exciting to me. I actually got to have a go at sewing without really knowing anything about sewing. And it was all going so well until it came unthreaded, and I tried to teach myself with the instruction booklet, but at this point it was quite late at night and I rage quit. I rage quit. But the next morning it was bright and early, and with the help of a YouTube tutorial it took me exactly 2 minutes and 12 seconds to thread it. It's actually less of a complicated procedure than you'd think. It kind of reminds me of how well I used to know mousetrap as a child. Like, to an adult, it looks like it doesn't make any freaking sense. Basically, threading the machine involves... It's a piece of piss, really. When you run out, you literally just pop your thread on here, through this hole, round the houses, through this hole, up this hole, down this hole, down this, through this hole, through that hole, with a little cheat threader if you are all thumbs like me. And then you're done. This thread is the thread. I don't know what to tell you. It's threaded. People who make out like it's hard are trying to stop you from sewing. That's my theory anyway. And so began my lockdown journey from sewing gnome to seamstress goddess. Here are the projects from most basic to, oh, I'd wear that, in the order that I did them. I am going to be chatting you through some of the steps that I did just to demonstrate how logical and doable it is. But this is by no means a tutorial. I will leave any links to tutorials I did use in the description if you want to try them yourself. I wanted to make this video and document the process, mainly because if it went horribly wrong, it would be a funny video, and because if it went well, perhaps I could encourage some of you to give it a go as well. As you know, I'm on a journey. It's a very long path. More of an unplanned road trip really, into a more sustainable lifestyle, because as we know from my Positive Panic series, the world is burning and there are lots of fantasy clothes in my head that I would love to have that shops don't sell, and a lot of clothes that I've loved for a long time and don't ever want to say goodbye to, so I want to learn how to mend them so I don't have to be parted from my friends. So without further ado, here are some projects I tried. So the first one was scrunchies. I've been informed that they're back in style, although I wasn't informed that they weren't in style, so I have been wearing them this whole time. Lucy and Yak is one of my favourite ethical brands, and they send you all of their dungarees in these recycled sari bags. So I started with a seam ripper, unpicking this one, pulling out the drawstring string. Remember the drawstring string. The drawstring. Remember it. Because what I am impressed with myself is the crossover between projects during this video. Have a look, watch. So I basically gutted the bag like it was a fish, tore it apart to see what I was left with. I then measured a length of fabric. To be honest, I didn't really go by any measurements I found online. You can't really get measurements for scrunchies wrong because it just depends on how thick you want the scrunchie and how wide you want the scrunchie. So like a finger high by twice the length of your elastic deep You can make big scrunchies or teeny scrunchies depending on what you want. I just went on my merry way and cut it out, and everything was going terribly well until I realised that all the tutorials I had been watching had been using like on the reel lengths of elastic that you then tied up, whereas I was just planning on using the hairbands I already had because reduce, reuse, recycle, and also I didn't have any. For all I knew, the apocalypse was happening outside. So I had fun unpicking that along with my ever-dwindling self-esteem. And I found another tutorial which showed you how to bunch up the fabric around the hairband and then sew it slowly through, which was a little bit more fiddly but not undoable. And also, I think if I'd have had the loose elastic to make my own, it would have been in no way as tight or in no way as secure. Plus, I already had the hairbands, like, let's not. So anyway, in the end, I felt very smug about my newfound scrunchie talent, and I ended up making a lot of scrunchies. So if you are my friend in real life, I hope you really like scrunchies for Christmas.
2!
So the next one I tried was upcycling this weird placemat I got from a charity shop a while ago. I wanted to make a kind of cutlery set holder for my mum. It was her birthday and we were only able to see each other from quite far away, so I needed like a good present to lob at her basically. I started by folding this piece of fabric in 3 around the cutlery and measuring it. Then I pinned a little pocket and ooh, do you recognise this? Oh, I think it's the sari bag string from earlier. I sewed the string into the back of the pocket with a really long tail peeking out, which you'll see why in a minute. And just did some stitches to make little pockets for each bit of cutlery. Cute! Like little sleeping bags for your eco tools. Then the idea is you just pop the top over it and roll it like a planet-saving burrito.
3!
Next was this space dress I've had for years. I've noticed though in the last 6 months I haven't really been wearing it and I want to wear it again. It was a little bit big on me at this point and just felt a little bit frumpy, so I thought I could massacre it into stylish submission. I started by unpicking the invisible zip from the side, which frankly was about 50% of the total time spent on this project. And then I ripped her at the belly. So this was the top after I'd taken it out. There was a big gap where the invisible zip was, and it was still pretty big on me. So I ended up making a little extra seam. I don't know the technical word for it, but I would call it an indent seam if I was the Lord of Sewing. 1 on each shoulder to make the shoulders a little bit smaller, and either side to make the top a little bit more fitted. And then I was like, what do I do with the skirt? The skirt's now just this expansive fabric. And then I thought about this Beatrix Potter skirt that I've had for ages, had since university, that doesn't really suit me anymore and I don't really wear. And I thought, what if I apply what I learnt with the scrunchie to a skirt? So I stole this massive hair elastic out of my Beatrix Potter skirt and I used the scrunchie tutorial to sew a new elastic into the top of the skirt. So I popped the big hairband inside a seam at the top of the skirt and sealed it in there for all time.
4!
Then it was like, hang on, I've got this amazing Beatrix Potter fabric that I will not be wasting. And I figured I had just about enough to make a top, maybe. At this point, I just had essentially what was a long rectangle of fabric. So I just took off my own top, measured how much I'd need for a neckline, used the most shallow slit ever for a neckline, and essentially just sewed around a square. I sewed up the shoulders, I sewed up the sides, and I left 2 holes for my arms. Don't pretend you haven't done this before. This is essentially the same method when you realise you don't have a Halloween costume, so you just literally wear a bin liner and make holes for your arms and neck. I was going to sew up the arms, but I wanted them to be really free and not to snag every time I want to dance and lift my arms above my head, which is a pet peeve of mine with tops. So I just kind of cut a slit in the arms and hemmed them. I think it looks pretty nice. Hemming the neckline was a little bit of a challenge, but I realised that if you just cut some slits in the seam of where the seam curves and sew that down, it makes it really flat. I don't know if that's the correct way to do it, but nobody died and I think it looks really nice.
5!
Next I had a rip in this pair of pants that I owned. There was a little lace line that didn't match up, so I just put it through the sewing machine and fixed it. The downside to me doing this was me getting really overconfident and thinking, hey, I've got this swimming costume that I can't wear anymore because I spilt foundation down it, long story. So I thought I could make this into a bikini. This would be so easy. I could just cut out the middle bit with the foundation and it would be a bikini. It would be great. So I measured it against a pair of bikini pants I already had, cut it in 2, hemmed everything, was feeling very smug. And just when I thought I was Coco Chanel herself, yeah, so when you're sewing something that's elastic, you probably need to use elastic thread. Lesson learned. I built my confidence back up by finally getting round to learning how to clean my Birkenstocks. This is unrelated to the video, but if you do want to clean your Birkenstocks, just a bit of bicarbonate of soda and some water, some scrubbing with a toothbrush, and you are back on the train of adulting. For a few weeks, I let my sewing machine gather some dust as my pride healed. In the interim, I lent my mind to what I see as one of the biggest decency scandals in all of clothes history. I call it the blind thigh. Why does nobody plan for thighs? It doesn't make any sense. My thighs have eaten every single pair of trousers I have ever owned. To try and rectify it, I bought some iron-on denim patches. First, it's very important to make a T on your jeans. Got some tea in your jeans, it's fine, it's fine. And it went relatively successfully. I cut them to measure, ironed them on, left them to cool, and I kind of couldn't see them. A success, I'd say, apart from it is to be noted that there are some things iron-on patches can never heal. But during that time, Craig actually borrowed my sewing machine to sew himself a cushion cover out of his band t-shirts. And I had a problematic flare of rage in my heart that said, I will be darned. Get it? If I let a man beat me at sewing, so I was back on it.
6!
Now I've always really loved these mini pennies, but I've tried them on before and my stomach cannot get into them. And then I remembered my first pair of Luciniacs. So this is the situation with these dungarees at the moment. They are a little bit too wide for me and bunch a bit around my crotch, but I like them and I think they're worth saving, so here we go. These are the first pair of Luciniacs that I have ever owned, and you can see that they have seen some fun days. We had some good times. Everything's a little bit worn. Really hope the neighbours aren't looking in because this would be very hard to explain. Even if I could find some corduroy patches to match this colour, which is hard, I can just see that this whole area will just break on me again. So I don't have much hope for saving the crotch, but what I do have hope for is turning it into a dress. So I found a tutorial online. I've decided that this is the kind of shape we're going for. This is a skirt that fits me really well and I'm really happy with the fit of it. Can't find a ruler, but I have got this piece of paper, so I'm just going to use that, because I think the thing about measuring as well is that it just has to be the same length. The length doesn't have to have a title, a name, 5 cm. You just have to match the lengths. So here's what I do. I want to cut off this much, I reckon. That's that much above the pocket. So I just do this, that much above the pocket. What can go wrong? Everything, Lena, everything. Well, I've got news for you, it's just a pair of fucking dungarees, so we can do it. Okay Google, play calming music. I feel like I'm in one of those Victorian magic tricks and it's like, woo! Again, should probably have like tailor's chalk for this, but a biro works fine and nobody's gonna see it, so like, give a shit. Okay Google, play Jack Johnson. So I trimmed around the skirt with about a 2 cm seam allowance, pinned the two sides together, sewed the seams, and it was all going so well until... Yep, I had not made it wide enough or allowed for any stretch in the fabric or any kind of fastening to wiggle it on, so... I unpicked enough stitching for a zip opening at the top and did get it more over my hips, but the tightness forced my intestines into my throat, so... Eventually I managed to get it on by unpicking the entire skirt and re-sewing it with a smaller seam allowance and an opening for a zipper. But it was still so tight that I would have to spend every day I wore it standing only, so... After a brief ripping tantrum, I took a deep breath and started reimagining the plan. So it went tits up, but I've got another plan. I ripped it all up, had a little tantrum, ripped it up. Tantrums are good sometimes. It was a positive tantrum. Some positive panic, if you will. And instead, these will are the legs. I'm going to attach them together so they make one shorter but still existent skirt. And I think I'm going to make it into a wrap dress. Do you see the vision? Do you see it? So this is going to be the front, and then I'm going to sew the top of the legs together, and then it'll be a wrap. It'll be a wrap, as in this will end. Okay, let's just try. So I folded that bit, and then I've pinned it, and then I pinned that to that. Let's see. So I was up at like 7:30 this morning sewing. It's now 11:30. I have been going for 4. Actually, no, I jogged and I had a shower, so 3 hours, and I think we're done. One of the lessons I've learned is that rage quitting isn't a failure. It's part of the journey. As long as you don't permanently rage quit, you come back better. I had a little mishap with the fabric loop I was trying to sew. As I was finishing it, I wanted to snip off some excess bits and instead ended up making a large hole, which I've kind of patched up very chaotically. Oh shit. Fucking shit balls. Fucking... And that is really frustrating, but also it's helping me learn how to keep my patience. And it's still really satisfying. It's still really satisfying when you think that all hope is lost and that you have built your house on sand. You work out a way to make a raft and it's okay, and it's still a thing. So that is the parable of the sewer. So this is how far we've got now. Let's see how this goes. So I've sewn this whole bit together and it has a tie on the end. Fancy. Realised I didn't tell you the history of the tie, so here's the history of the tie. I scrabbled for scraps from the dungarees and managed to get 2 lengths of corduroy wide enough and found a really short one that I could make into a loop. I sewed them into 2 tubes, attached this safety pin and literally fed it to itself until it was inside out. Ew. Okay, don't laugh, but we don't own an ironing board. Our flat is so small, even the thought of an ironing board being near me feels overwhelming. On the rare occasion that I do iron, this is how I do it. Then I ironed it. The plan was to attach the 2 longer ones together to make one long cord. Now, I don't have any pattern for this or any instructions, but I'm guessing it's gonna kind of be like the scrunchie, when we were joining the 2 ends of the scrunchie, right? So I'm just putting this through here, I'm gonna fold that over, I'm gonna sew it. We'll get you wrong. And it has this very mashed up loop on this side. We don't yet have a back, so I'm just going to use my chin. And let's see how this goes. So the plan was to have the end of the fabric to wrap over my front and the loop to feed round behind me and tie on my left. Yes. Yes. Oh my god, that kind of looks cool. Okay, okay. I mean, it's very short. I'm gonna try and put pins where I need the back bit to be. If I end up deflating my own ass, remember me this way. Ow. Oh, okay. Okay, that told me nothing about what I need to do. But this is like part of it. I'm also just like winging it and working out how to work out what I need to know. So I need to know where to put the back piece. So I guess I need to know where this meets this, which is like here. So I'm gonna put a safety pin, what I should have been doing in the beginning, here, which is where the skirt meets the other bit of the skirt, and then I just need to find the middle of that, right? Like that bit there, that bit there, yeah. Okay, so we're ready for the big reveal. It's obviously not what I pictured, but in terms of tackling the tummy issue and like how tight Lucy and Yak mini dresses usually run, like I'm really happy with the fit of it. It makes me feel way more comfortable. It's way easier to sit in, easier to live in, easier to party in. I'm not happy. So this, what I didn't think about was that this side just goes down and then this side I've joined and made it all join. So I don't know if I'm either going to insert a piece of fabric here at some point or I'm going to cut a piece of fabric out of here and make it match. But for now, I'm just gonna leave it because I'm happy. Side note, really recommend wearing romper suits underneath short dresses, 1 for flash reasons and 2 for chub rub reasons. It's a genius move. I also really like this shirt, matches the logo, makes me feel legit. So you're up to date with everything I know so far about sewing. What did we learn? I think the first thing is that I should never have been as intimidated by sewing as I think we're encouraged to be. If you can fold a napkin, if you can play mousetrap, if you can tie your shoelaces, you have some of the basics of the logic you need to start altering your clothes. Look, I failed my driving test 3 times and I can work this sewing machine. You don't need to have all the equipment. Eyeballing is totally a thing. I have been eyeballing this whole time. Obviously, when you get into more like advanced projects, I'm sure that measuring is a thing, but watching more than one tutorial really helped me get a sense of how it all worked, all the options I had, and it helped to lessen the doom when something went wrong. It shouldn't be like assembling IKEA furniture where there's only one way to do it, and if you get stuck at a step, then you're fucked. Another thing I realised was that it's really important not to get attached to your first vision of how the project might turn out. The aim of the game for me is just saving my clothes so that I can keep wearing them. So as long as you make it into something that you will definitely keep using, I think it's fine. Remembering to eat was the biggest one for me. Are you failing indefinitely or are you just hungry? But mainly the experience of learning to do the very base level of sewing was just this kind of act of, not even defiance, it was more like a levelling. It's like, it's very normal for us to need to know what's going on under the hood of our car before we drive it. We need to know where the oil levels are, we need to know how to do some basic preservation. And I just felt like that really. It didn't feel like anything particularly rebellious, but just like something that I was like, oh, of course, I don't have to identify as a sewer to know this. I'm an owner of clothes. I can ask what a seam is. And then also what I felt, especially when doing the dungarees dress, was this kind of sense of like play. It didn't matter that the dungarees were a little bit mashed up, that I knew it wouldn't look completely even, that they were already quite worn, because it was almost like that scene in The Sound of Music where Maria is sewing the kids' clothes out of old curtains because she's defiantly like, these kids need play clothes. They need clothes that they can be silly in. They need clothes that they can roll around in and aren't focused on being perfect, but focused on enabling play. And that's like really what I guess that dungaree set is for me. It's not something that I would ever inflict on anyone else, but it fits my body and the bits of it are mashed up and my mashes up. What's next on your sewing journey, Lena? Well, you will notice I haven't fulfilled my 40 before 40 resolution yet of making a piece of clothing from scratch, but don't worry, I've got 9 more years. I have, however, got these 2 patterns that I got from the internet. Like, there were simpler patterns to buy, but I want it to be an achievement, and also I think I just want it to be something that I will definitely wear. This is the kind of majesty that I can motivate myself to work out how to do. I love the neckline of this one, and I like that you can make it into a jumpsuit or a shorts or a dress. So I'm excited to try those. I'm worried that I might need a proper sewing machine to do them, but we'll see. You know that I'm going to try it without doing that. What's your relationship with clothes, with sewing, with mending clothes? Have you ever tried before? Have you ever disappointed yourself? If you're interested in mending your clothes from a sustainability point of view, I have a series called Positive Panic, all about the climate here. If you're interested in altering your clothes because of a fashion point of view, I do have some clothes videos here too. If you haven't been here before but would like to accidentally find yourself here again, the subscription button makes that way more likely. And a big thank you to the Gumption Club, who are a group of beautiful viewers who make these videos free for everybody else to watch. If you want to find out more about joining the Gumption Club and all the goodies that come with it, you can click the link in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Frog Smug out!